Hello. I'm going straight from the last video, so I'm feeling a little tired still, but I'll give you guys another story. So, this is a story about a substitute. And I'm going to say the guy's real name because not giving out any information about nothing. But I'm going to call him Mr. Jones. Why not? So, I was in history one day, and my teacher was gone, so we had a substitute. He just so happens to be Mr. Jones. I'm going to give you a little background on Mr. Jones, because previously I had him in that same class. And he went into a giant spiel about how socialism is bad, communism is bad, we should all vote as true Americans, and he is a true American. So back to the story. Knowing that he was a true American, I wanted to ask him, hey, Mr. Jones, what is your opinion on the upcoming presidential election? He just responded quickly, I have no opinion yet, it is too early to tell. I'm like, okay, fair enough. And then I gave him this question. Mr. Jones, what is your opinion on technology integrating into our newfound society? And he responded to this, well, that's a loaded question, isn't it? I'm like, oh, okay, fair enough. How about specifically into law enforcement? And he asked me, oh, are you going into law enforcement? I'm like, not particularly, but I just want to get your opinion on it. And by this I mean like RoboCops and stuff. But I don't know how he took it because he went to a 10-minute spiel about how technology was back in the 60s. He's a kind of an old guy, so it wouldn't make sense. And I think this is pretty funny. But then he flips the question on me and he says, hey, young man, what political party are you? I'm like, oh, I'm a Republican at heart. Because I kind of want to make this funny. And he said, good man, good man. And I am too. What political party is your dad? I'm like, oh, my dad doesn't talk politics with me. He's not that kind of guy. He's like, oh, your dad's a good man, good man. Respect that. And he just drops the bomb on me. He says, I just have to tell you that I think that Democrats are the least American people in society today. I'm like, oh, Mr. Jones, goodness. It was funny because right behind him was like a guy that I know, and what I know from him is he is a Democrat at heart. Whole family's Democrat, born, raised Democratic. And I was just like trying not to die. So, into the hour comes, I leave. I shake his hand. I'm like, thank you, Mr. Jones. You are a great man. He says, thank you. And he asks me, hey, young man, how old are you? I'm like, oh, I'm 14. And he says, whoa, you're only 14? I'm like, yeah, I'm 14. And he tells me, I respect that. For such a young age, being so into politics. Do you plan on being a politician when you grow up? I'm like, yes, Mr. Jones, yes I am. I'm not, obviously. I personally want to be a comedian, but I didn't tell him this. All part of the joke. Now coming into just what happened the other day. So my advisory teacher was gone, and I just so happened to have Mr. Jones. Yes. And I'm just hanging out with my friends, kind of talking, and he knows that I like talking politics with him. And he walks up to me and he says, Gavin, let me tell you this quote from Bill Clinton that makes me hate him even more as a president. I'm like, okay, what is it? And he says, I've never had sexual relationships with that woman. I'm like, Mr. Jones, Mr. Jones. I'm like dying. I'm like, it's sexual. And all my friends are like just dying. And the next day, I find, I'm in my advisory, and my advisory teacher's back, and it happens to be reading day in my advisory. And she tells us, hey guys, you need to go get out your books. I get out my book, which is on my phone, and I'm like, nah, I'm not going to read my book today. So I go and get a comic book that she has. Like, if you don't have a book or your book isn't really interesting, she'll have some comic books for you. I get a comic book, and it's one about Superman versus a villain that I've never seen before. And it was a guy called Bloodsport. If you guys don't know who Bloodsport is, who is probably most of you guys, he is a guy who is my... Okay, no one's... Okay. So, he's a villain who... He's kind of just a racist guy. Like, the only people he targets are blacks, Hispanics, Asians, and just all around non-Americans. And when I'm reading this book, it's very weird because the guy was supposed to die to a bomb, but somehow he didn't die, and now he can teleport weapons to him whenever he wants. Very strange. But when I'm reading it, the guy says, you better watch out, Superman, because I have more lives than Clinton has excuses. And I show this to my friends. I'm like, dude, doesn't this remind you of Mr. Jones? And they're like, oh, yes. And I just so happened to be lucky that day. Because Mr. Jones was subbing for a teacher that was like right beside. Like, here's Mr. Jones's, like who he's subbing for. This is my classroom, where I'm going for 7th hour. I'm like, I gotta tell him. So, I book it down to Mr. Jones's room. Well, the room that he's subbing for. I get down there, and I just tell him, hey, Mr. Jones, I was reading this comic book, and in it said that Clinton, I actually mess up, that he has more lives than Clinton has excuses. He's like, ooh, that was good, that was good. I'm like, thank you. I tell him I'll be here all week. He's a laugh, and it's really good. So anyways, I'm gonna film another video today. You guys have a nice day. Handshake. Nice day. If you haven't seen my Christmas tree, it's rather amusing. I have no gifts under it yet, obviously. It's like December 4th. Christmas coming up. So anyways, guys, have a nice day and goodbye.